Hello and welcome. I would like to introduce Jeanette Lizelle, the Director of the New York State Department of Labor's Division of Immigrant Policies and Affairs.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking time to join us for these H-2A presentations. These presentations are in response to questions that we have received from employers and agents about the H-2A process. It is my pleasure to introduce Kaylin Blythe, Foreign Labor and Agriculture Specialist. She has been part of the DEPA team since 2012. Take it away, Kaylin.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Jeanette. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Lunchtime Learning webinars on the H-2A program. Our first presentation will be a basic review of the H-2A program and details on submitting a successful application. Let's start from the ground up. What is the H-2A Foreign Guest Worker Visa Program? It is a federal program which allows U.S. employers to hire foreign workers on a temporary basis when there are not sufficient U.S. workers available. Under the H-2A program, the work must be agricultural in nature, full-time, 35 hours per week or more, and temporary. If you're wondering where to begin, the U.S. Office of Foreign Labor Certification provides a general guide for the application process, which can be found online. The Division of Immigrant Policies and Affairs staff play key roles in the H-2A Foreign Guest Worker Visa program. The Foreign Labor Certification Unit is involved in various aspects of processing of the employer's application. The Foreign Labor Certification Unit provides documents and forms as requested by the USDOL on a timely basis, reviews the application for New York State compliance, answers questions from employers or agents regarding the application process, communicates regularly with employers about issues arising at the federal level, and provides specific guidance to the employer or agent based on feedback from the U.S. Department of Labor. The Agriculture Labor Program field staff provides support by conducting federally required housing inspections, field checks, and by processing apparent violations. Employers who participate in the H-2A program are required to pay the adverse effect wage rate to employees performing duties listed in the job order. The New York State Department of Labor does not play a role in determining the adverse effect wage rate, AWER, for employers in New York State. In addition, the AWER is not set by the New York State Department of Labor's Apple and Pear Survey. The AWER is the regional weighted average hourly rate for field and livestock workers combined, as measured by the Department of Agriculture's annual Farm Labor Survey of non-supervisory farm and ranch workers. Most regions include more than one state. When the prevailing wage is a piece rate, employers may pay by the piece, but must guarantee that workers earn at least the AWER on an hourly basis. The AWER was established during the Bracero program, a previous guest worker program for farm workers from Mexico that ended in 1964, and applied to the H-2A program. The law guaranteed that guest workers would not adversely affect the wages of U.S. workers. To prevent adverse effects, the programs required employers to pay at least the local prevailing wage for the specific job. But wage rates at employers that hire guest workers often become stagnant and ultimately depressed, hurting both foreign workers and U.S. workers. The purpose of the adverse effect wage rate is to overcome and prevent depression in prevailing wage rates. These are the 2019 adverse effect wage rates. Please note how the rates are similar regionally. Again, the New York State Department of Labor does not play any role in setting these rates. Let's discuss the federal and state agencies involved in each step of the process, as well as the timeline for applying for H-2A workers. The first step is when the employer submits Form ETA 790 and any attachments to the New York State Department of Labor 60 to 75 calendar days prior to the date of need for the workers. Then, the employer sends his or her application package to the CNPC, Chicago National Processing Center, no less than 45 calendar days prior to the date of need. Employers should have an approved housing inspection, either from the New York State Department of Labor or the New York State Department of Health, depending on capacity, at least 32 days prior to the date of need. The U.S. Department of Labor will then certify the order approximately 30 days prior to the date of need. Upon certification, the employer uses the certified order to petition the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, for the visas. So, if you're considering this program, what is the cost? For the USDOL ETA Form 9142, the filing fee is $100 plus $10 per worker, not to exceed $1,000. For USCIS, the I-129 form filing fee is $460 per application. Multiple workers can be entered on one application. The employer is responsible for the cost of the worker's visas, but not the cost of the worker's passports. Employers must also pay for the inbound and outbound transportation, as well as subsistence for the workers while they're in transit. Some employers do not have the time to learn how to apply for the H-2A program. There are agents around the country that specialize in H-2A. To facilitate your search, we provide a list of agents on our website. We recommend that you call several agents and discuss your needs before deciding who to use. Now let's go over some basic H-2A requirements. H-2A general requirements. Workers may only do duties detailed on the certified job order. Workers must also only work for the approved employer. H-2A pay requirements. Workers must be paid weekly or biweekly. Biweekly pay is only acceptable when the workers are paid up to date. The total pay must meet the 3/4 guarantee for the entire contract. And the workers must be paid the adverse effect wage rate. Single employer versus joint employer. Most H-2A orders in New York State are for a single employer. However, joint orders or orders with multiple employers are possible. Joint orders must contain similar crops. For example, a joint order with multiple vineyards might share H-2A workers. Keep in mind that with joint convenience and cooperation comes joint liability. Here are a few filing tips when submitting your application. For the job title or occupation requested, the two most common types of workers are farm workers and laborers, crop, which requires 3 months of experience, and agricultural equipment operators, which require 6 months of experience. The job duties listed should represent the actual work to be done. Very vague or very lengthy job descriptions are not recommended. This is because workers may only do the job duties detailed and approved in the job order. Job descriptions should be as specific as possible if farmers also plan on hiring domestic workers and want to keep the duties and pay separate. The more general the job description, the more likely that all workers employed must be paid the adverse effect wage rate. In the job order, also be sure to include any required language and any additional items for consideration, such as house rules. Be careful not to include any unnecessary language or language that is contradictory to New York State labor law. Keep in mind that the longer the application is, the longer it will take to be reviewed and approved. All H-2A applications are sent to the Chicago National Processing Center, the CNPC, within the U.S. Office of Foreign Labor Certification. When the CNPC issues a notice of acceptance, known as NOA, the employer must begin the local recruitment process. The NOA advises the employer to place newspaper advertisements as part of the employer's attempts to hire qualified and domestic local workers. These newspaper ads are part of the recruitment efforts. The employer will need to demonstrate a lack of qualified domestic workers to the CNPC in order for it to certify the job order. The term domestic worker refers to any person in the United States who is authorized to work. The New York State Department of Labor is not involved in this aspect of employer-required recruitment. However, we can assist with language interpretation if requested. As part of the H-2A process, employers must interview and hire all qualified domestic applicants. There are several types of applicants to consider. DOL referrals are apprised of the essential terms and conditions of the H-2A job order. Our staff ensure the customers are ready, willing, able, and qualified prior to making the referral. There are two types of DOL referrals. A facilitated DOL referral is when a customer is referred to an H-2A job order and receives assistance from our staff to seek the employment. Our staff might contact the employer to advise of the referral, schedule the interview, or even facilitate the interview with language services. An unfacilitated DOL referral is when a customer is referred to an H-2A job order, but the applicant does not want DOL assistance to pursue the job. For example, the applicant may state that they will contact the employer on his or her own. There are also self-referrals. These applicants find out about the H-2A job order through their own means, for example, by reading the newspaper advertisements or by seeing the job order posted on our website during the active recruitment period. Staff are not involved with these applicants unless they reach out to us directly. FLCU staff administer each H-2A job order in our job bank system and on our public-facing website. The timelines for job order administration are prescribed by federal regulations. The employer must hire all domestic applicants who are qualified for the job, are available for the entire term of employment, and have been fully apprised of all terms and conditions of the job in the applicant's primary language. As we've stated, H-2A employers must provide employment to any qualified, eligible U.S. worker who applies for the job until 50% of the work contract has elapsed, unless they qualify under the 50% rule exemption. To qualify for the exemption, the employer must demonstrate that it did not, during any calendar quarter during the preceding calendar year, use more than 500 man days of agricultural labor, is not a member of an association which has petitioned for certification under this subpart for its members, and has not otherwise associated with another employer who are petitioning for temporary foreign workers under this subpart. When thinking about meeting these qualifications and using the H-2A program, we typically think of seasonal crops like apples, fruit, vegetables, and other harvests that occur over a relatively short period of time. Traditionally, dairy farms don't meet this description due to the fact that their work is year-round in nature. However, over the past several years, dairy farms and other locations, such as sheep farms, apiaries, and horse farms, have had success applying to the H-2A program. They have been successful because they've been able to show that they have a seasonal need for agricultural workers. Typically, they tie this seasonal need with a specific duty or duties on the farm. It's important to note that applications must also show that the seasonal need requires more workers than their standard workforce. For example, a farmer cannot request workers for harvesting hay if the hay harvest does not require any more workers than the farmer already has. The farmer may be required to show that the work of harvesting hay requires assistance above and beyond the regular workforce level of the farm. These are examples of job descriptions from dairy farms that have been successfully petitioned for H-2A workers. Perform general winter maintenance, perform snow removal, de-ice and repair water pipes and bunker silos. Cows calve from May to November to avoid calves being born in sub-zero weather. The result is a very seasonal workload of raising calves and getting the hay crop harvested and stored. These are some examples from horse farms and other livestock farms that have successfully petitioned for H-2A workers. Mowing, picking rocks and maintaining fields, fixing fences and buildings, spreading manure in fields piled up from the winter, using a skid steer to clean barns, stack hay, and straw to supply for the winter. Engage in the breeding of horses. Seasonal employment begins in April and ends in September, while horses are bred, birthed, and weaned. Breed in foal mares. It is important to keep in mind that just because a job order is approved for a dairy farm, for example, the workers are restricted to performing the work listed on the job order. If you bring in the workers to harvest grains, for example, they cannot engage in milking. You may put as many duties as you like in the job description, but duties that indicate a lack of seasonality may prevent your application from moving through the process. Also, keep in mind that if you're filing multiple applications, the totality of your applications matters. If you submit one order for 10 workers from May through November for harvesting, and then another order for 10 workers from December through April for crop packaging, you've essentially proven that you do not have a higher peak load seasonal need. Now let's move on to some post-certification topics. Sometimes employers discover that they need workers for longer than they anticipated when they initially filed their application. In these instances, employers can request an extension. The request must detail the reasons for the extension, such as a delayed cleanup due to weather or an unforeseen bumper crop. An employer may apply for extensions of the period of employment in the following circumstances. The first is a short-term extension. Employers seeking extensions of 2 weeks or less must apply directly to the Department of Homeland Security for approval. The second is a long-term extension. Employers seeking extensions of more than 2 weeks may apply to the Chicago National Processing Center. Such requests must be related to weather conditions or other factors beyond the control of the employer, which may include unforeseen changes in market conditions. Such requests must be supported in writing with documentation showing that the extension is needed and that the need could not have been reasonably foreseen by the employer. Keep in mind that disclosure is always required. The employer must provide to the workers a copy of any approved extension. Let's review some common H-2A missteps that can hold up the application process. Employers must comply with both federal and New York State labor laws. During the application review, language that is contrary to New York State labor law will be removed after employer notification. Many employers will receive a certified job order reflecting edits made by the Foreign Labor Certification Unit. This is our attempt to ensure that the application is compliant and will not be denied by the Chicago National Processing Center. Some common H-2A missteps we see are underreporting of hours on the ETA 790. Employers should make every effort to list accurate hours. Vague job descriptions. This can put an employer in a situation where everyone working on the farm is due the AWOR. Employer-provided housing must be inspected and approved at least 32 days prior to the employer's date of need. Workers may not be charged for damaged, broken, or missing tools and equipment. They may not be charged for damage to housing. And workers must be paid weekly or biweekly if paid up to date. Just a brief word about some services that we're providing to H-2A employers. After certification at the request of the H-2A employer, the FLCU can produce and mail out the H-2A Visa Guest Worker Program laminated cards containing details about the certified H-2A job order so that they may further personalize and distribute to workers. In 2018, DEPA produced 789 cards for 50 H-2A job orders. If you would like to request these cards for this year, you can call 877-466-9757 or email depa@labor.ny.gov. Also in 2019, DEPA has provided a DVD with the Know Your Rights presentation for farm workers in English and Spanish. This presentation has been sent to about 250 employers around the state. It is our hope that the DVD will be played for farm workers as they are onboarding to the business for the season. This pilot will hopefully get feedback from farmers asked to participate. Our goal is to use this type of media for general Know Your Rights presentations so that field time can be focused on providing better services to the employer and the workers. This is our FLCU supervisory structure and basic information on our tasks. Please feel free to review and note our numbers as necessary. And with that, we appreciate you taking the time to go over this information with us, and I believe we will open it up for questions.